It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, you can see in the Sharp Interactive board, I have my good friend Milton Bartley. And Milton Bartley is the CEO and founder of ImageQuest LLC out of Nashville. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, Milton's been on the end of the day with Ray many times. And I'm hoping that my conversations with Milton will wake up an industry to the realities around delivering IT services and security services. So as I talk to Milton, I want you all to think of this question. How does an industry that was built to go out into the marketplace, sell people products, and save them money on their service? That's what we've done, folks. We built a business to go save people money. How do you transition into a business that's going to cost people more money, and more every single day, especially with the risk of cybersecurity attacks? Milton, how are you doing? It's great to have you on, and I want to have a conversation about that subject. You know, we're seeing MSPs out there, you know, they're talking about how they don't have contracts, how you can cancel the contract whenever you want. They don't raise their prices and all this nonsense. And I'm thinking to myself, how in the world can you charge a customer the same thing you were charging them just 2 or 3 years ago with all the new threats and all the new responsibilities put on the shoulders of MSP? So give me some insight on that, Milton.
Yeah, well, Ray, thanks for having me on. It's a great question. I scratched my head on that one just like you do. I don't understand how when I see a competitor or a quasi-competitor talking about those things in their marketing material, I think they're either full of it or they're going out of business, because the cost of delivering what we deliver today is just astronomically higher than it was in some cases even 3 or 4 months ago, but you know, in a lot of cases and almost all cases, certainly than it was 2 to 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, it's amazing to me that if you don't have the discipline to control your cost, but at the same time, you got to have the discipline to make sure those customers that are your customers are paying their fair share, if you will. I mean, you can't, you know, I just think of it this way. I think of our, you know, if you look at the print channel, and I know you probably don't pay attention too much to them anymore. Good for you. You've made the transition. But when you look at those folks, and in all reality, their whole entire business model was built on saving people money. They brag about it. We're in a supply chain crisis, the biggest one in their history, and they're still having sales. They're still advertising managed print services. We're going to save you 30% on your print. And I'm thinking to myself, that'd be like the IT companies running around out there saying, we're going to save you 30% on your cybersecurity. Just call us up. And we don't see anybody, thankfully, doing that. But, you know, let me ask you a question. You've been really strong with your EBITDA. You know, you've allowed me to share your numbers, you know, at some of the venues that I've spoken at. But, you know, how has that taken a hit in the last year because of all the added costs that you had? And walk me through that a little bit.
You know, it's absolutely hit us, and it really just hasn't been over the last year. It's really been a kind of a 3-year cycle if you look at it, and we've had some peaks and valleys, but it's been a steady going in the wrong direction. Not dramatically, but you know, a percentage here, a percentage there, and we've made adjustments to get there. But you know, what happens is, let's take labor for example. Labor is the most expensive piece of our business. It's the highest cost we have. And you know, just today, to hire somebody to work in an IT service role in Nashville, Tennessee, and I know every market's a little bit different, but I think the world in general is seeing these same things, that we're seeing a shortage of talent for available positions. We're paying, you know, anywhere from 12 to 25% more for entry-level positions than we were a year ago.
Which is a big jump.
It's a huge jump. I mean, you think about that. So, and where we've seen the biggest impact to us is what we would call our legacy clients. So as we've brought on new clients, we've changed our pricing and adjusted prices to account for that, right? But when you've got, you know, still 80+% of your revenue, typically at any point in time, is going to come from legacy clients over the course of a year. We have to go back and adjust pricing with those legacy clients to bring it up to the right level. And then the second piece of that, Ray, is, you know, we've always done a nice job, I think, at ImageQuest of analyzing our numbers and sort of knowing where we sit. You know, when we look at it and we cross-diagnose, you know, we look at it every way we can. So one of the things we realize is, as we've gone up market or up segment, and our average contract is bigger, right? And we get a lot more contracts that are more than $10,000, more than $20,000 a month in recurring revenue. What we realized really quickly is these smaller accounts, there's not a number that makes sense where you can service them and provide the things that we need to provide. There's the baseline cost to deliver our services and security support to a client, whether they have 1 or 1,000 employees, has risen above the level where a lot of those clients are comfortable paying their monthly fee. And so we've just had to have frank, and in some cases difficult, but just frank conversations with people and show them the numbers. I mean, we're very transparent about it. I mean, I don't like go into my margin calculations with them, but I do show them the delta in labor cost on a roll. And because the reality is, if they don't have us or someone like us doing it, they have to go hire these people too. They're going to have the exact challenges we have if they try to hire this and do it themselves.
They'll probably have more of a challenge hiring the people too.
Well, and managing it and all the things. I mean, we get all that, but if they just want to look at pure math, I mean, if I've got to pay a help desk tech, X, they're going to have to pay the help desk tech the same rate, right? It's not like they can go out in the Nashville market and hire that person for less than I can.
Well, I think what you're going to see, I think what you see, and this really separates the cream from the crap, as they say, but you'll probably see a lot of MSPs that will downsize their capabilities to right-size the payment for the customer, which is scary as hell in IT. I mean, you can do that in print if you want. Who cares if the thing breaks? Nobody cares. They just email the document. But in the IT world, I mean, if you're starting to downgrade, or lower your cost by taking away your capacity or your skill set, that's a really slippery slope. And I think
I've already seen that, Ray. We've got a couple of competitors. I'm not going to say a couple. I've got a competitor specifically in another market, not Nashville, that I know. We compete against them, and they've done exactly that. If you remember the old days of, we had the gold, silver package, or the platinum, gold, silver package, or, your emerald, ruby, diamond, whatever you want to call it, 3 levels of support. And that's sort of gone away over the last 3 to 5 years, and people just offer managed services. That's the Paul Dipple model, right? You can't carve this out. Well, I'm seeing people come back to that now and allow people to opt out of what I consider to be critical services. So it's almost like I think about the car industry. So can you imagine if you went to buy a car today and you went to the car lot and they said, hey, the car is this, but if you want airbags, that's an extra package. You don't have to have the airbags. Yeah. It's an option.
Seatbelts.
It's the same thing with the cybersecurity piece. I see these people packaging cybersecurity, and we package it as well so customers can understand it. We put it into a package, but it's not optional. They don't get to check a box and say, I do or don't want it. I've seen a vendor and others put this together and allow a customer to opt out of the premium cybersecurity. And I'm like, how would you do that to somebody? How would you allow someone to make that decision about their business?
Well, a totally an immature business with poor acumen in an IT services world that's changing so rapidly. But Milton, I've been saying a long time, I mean, there's so many IT services companies that are sub 1 million in revenue. I mean, even when you get to sub 5 million, I mean, it's probably like 70% of the whole world is sub 5 million. And there's very few that are those boutique providers. One of my concerns has always been, as more and more moves to the cloud, you're going to find that these cloud providers are going to be able to take away these low-end customers and do it for a whole lot cheaper than the $2,000 or $3,000 a month IT provider. And who wants to build an IT practice, a boutique practice, where your average contract is $2,000 or $3,000? I think those days are long gone. It's not about, let's get someone on our help desk and listen to some lunatic tell us how to grow a business to be a $3 million lifestyle IT company. But let me ask you a question right now, because your numbers change over time. But what's your average, revenue right now that you're looking for a new client?
Yeah, so we have 2 numbers, Ray. So our soft number is we won't take a new engagement that's less than $10,000 a month. Okay. And that's where we target. That's where we're marketing. That's where we're making sales calls. We have a soft number that's 5,000, or excuse me, a hard number that's 5,000. We will not go beneath that. And so where would we go between the 5 and the 10? And that's someone that we know is a growing and thriving business. They have a potential to get to that 10,000 relatively quickly. They want a partner to grow with them. They're investing in, whatever that new thing is, and we recognize that growth. But we're big in financial services and banking. And so, a de novo bank or a startup bank, a lot of times fits that mold, right? They have 3 to 10 employees as they're forming the bank, before they get a charter, and then the day they get a charter, they have 30 employees, right? And so we ride that with them. But we can't do that either for $2,500 a month or $1,000 a month or whatever that number is. There's a baseline cost, right, for us to deliver our services. And as much as we would want to help a customer like that grow, the reality is if I'm delivering that service to somebody at my cost, essentially, that's an opportunity cost for my business that I could be doing that for somebody else. It's not like we have a shortage of clients or a shortage of demand. If we were sitting around going, oh my gosh, I got, 10 people on the bench and nothing for them to do, that'd be a different argument, but that's not the case.
Milton, I think the thing that's changed, and I want you to clarify for this, but a lot of MSPs are now selling cloud applications. And, my fear has always been that the cloud application revenue could be substantial. You go out there and start selling a bunch of services, 365, Zoom licensing, whatever it is. But I also think that's a big distraction because it's not really services reoccurring revenue. So I want to ask you, how do you separate out your cloud application revenue from your reoccurring services revenue, and why is it important to do that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Ray. So, simply in our, in our general ledger, they're in different buckets, right? And so we can look at those buckets and we can look at the margin on those specific things. So, you mentioned Office 365. We've got a bucket for Office 365 and related Microsoft services. We've got a revenue and a cost, and we can see the margin on that. And, there's a lot of ways to skin that, but we sell that at Microsoft's price. So if Microsoft says it's $24 a month, we sell it for $24 a month. We don't put an artificial ImageQuest margin in it. We put a margin in our services to provide the support for that. So same thing with any of these other cloud services. Adobe, Zoom. We don't actually sell Zoom for our clients. We just have them put their own credit card in it. We'll help them manage it, but we don't want to be off in the weeds with all these services. But your point is a good one. I think people get fooled, and I blame Steve Jobs for all this, for making the iPhone so ubiquitous and so easy, right? People get fooled that, I just got to go get an Office 365 subscription and all my stuff just works. I don't need an IT support person. And the reality is, especially for the medium and larger customers, the more of these services you deploy, actually the more you need expertise to manage it, to manage the security behind it, to manage the interoperability of those. Data is moving from and to different cloud applications and moving through others' clouds, and there are compliance and regulatory questions that need to be answered. And then again, the security piece is critical. Microsoft and all the providers, they do this on purpose, and it's probably smart. They come out of the box with most of these features disabled because they need a high adoption, right? They need that small business to be able to flip a switch, turn it on, and then, an hour they're up and running. And if it was super complex and all these things, they had to jump through hoops to make it happen, adoption would be low, and I get that. But to get the security pieces turned on and to get that set up right and to make sure that you didn't leave a hole open in your cloud that the bad guys can get into, or that your people can leak data out of either maliciously or by accident, that's where the expertise comes in, and we charge for that. We charge a managed service for that, and that is not an inexpensive endeavor.
Well, it seems to me that if you focus on the service portion of the application, not on the application. And I think, that's the difference. And that's probably the difference in a mature IT services company and one that's kind of trying to chase revenue without a real thought to the service piece. So, Milton, it's been probably 8 or 9 months since we talked. What has been the biggest challenge to your organization besides the manpower and the stuff that we all know? But, what's the landscape to be a boutique IT services company like yourself, and how is that? What are some of the challenges you're having with that?
That's we have a couple, and these are not unique, but these are the things that as the CEO that I focus on. I've got operators that run the business, and then my job is to kind of maintain control at the helm, if you will. So things that keep me up at night and or get my juices flowing in the daytime, cybersecurity, stack. And so what does that mean? So there are thousands and thousands of cybersecurity products and services, and their companies are calling us, left and right. If you think you get a lot of people calling you trying to sell you aftermarket toner and parts, try cybersecurity. It is absolutely nuts. And then it's so difficult to discern the difference in the nuance in a lot of these products. And so picking that stack, curating that stack, and making sure that you walk the line of let's make sure we have the right stack and we're closing all the holes we need to close. At the same time, we're at least looking at what else is out there, but you can't look at everything, right? You can't take every sales call. You can't look at every product. And so that's a challenge in and of itself. The second piece I would say that probably keeps me as busy as anything is maintaining the regulatory status for our regulated clients. Regulations are changing constantly, being reevaluated, and making sure that we stay on top of that from an industry knowledge perspective. So if I walk into a law firm and we're talking about a law firm who services, healthcare, that we're pretty well versed on the HIPAA rules and, those regulations and how that law firm needs to respond if they're handling data on behalf of their clients. Or if I'm walking into a, de novo bank and helping them come out of the ground, making sure that we are helping them with the right policies and procedures and the things that they need to meet the regulatory guidelines. So that's the second one. And then the third one, Ray, is getting pricing right. And that's a constant battle, making sure that we're pricing our services commensurate with the market, but commensurate with what we're providing, and then being able to articulate what we're providing to our customers so they get what they're paying for. That's been a huge challenge. We just did a big price increase for our customers of July 1st, and it's we do an annual price increase. You typically in the August-September timeframe. We moved it up a couple of months this year, and it's a much more substantial increase. But we had to account for all the investments we've made and the increased prices we've got. Our vendors are coming to us with price increases, right? Supply chain flows downhill, right? And we're pretty close to the bottom of that hill when it comes to it. The end user is after us, and that's it. So we've got labor increases, we've got fuel increases, we've got all the inflationary pressures that are hitting everybody, right? And at the end of the day, we can't absorb that on behalf of our clients. We're in a partnership with them, and we have to co-absorb it. So, we did a pretty substantial price increase just, 16 days ago to ensure that we can continue to provide services to our customers at the level they want and need and deserve. And do so without, dramatically impacting our margins in a negative way so that we can't continue to grow.
Well, you have to have the right people on the bus. It's expensive to fill those seats, and you want to make sure that all your customers have the same capabilities, and those capabilities need to be the top shelf capabilities, not in the middle or the bottom. You talk a little bit about regulatory, and I just wanted to ask you really quick. I know that's a big part of your business, but your compliance and regulatory practice, how is that percentage of revenue growing in your business?
It's growing. I would say last year, I'd have to look at the first 6 months of this year and really compare it. But I think we're hand in hand. It's kind of growing about the same pace as our managed services business. But, we started it from scratch really 5 years ago, and that business is now close to a fourth of our revenue. So it's a good business. I actually see it growing a little faster this year than the managed services business, only because of some added capabilities we've got with some of the consultants we put on our team. So we can actually go into a bank and do some things that are really have nothing to do with IT. This is not IT. This is really financial services consulting with a banking expertise, delivered by folks who have been bankers for 15 or 20 years.
Pretty amazing stuff. Milton, you always, at the end of the day, you're a shining star on the hill, if you will. There's a lot of folks that are trying to transition. I believe that they can, but they have to have discipline, and they have to have a passion to do it, and they have to be willing. They have to be really willing not to follow the journey of stupidity because it's easy or it's comfortable. There's nothing comfortable about it. There was nothing comfortable about it when I was with you, in the heyday when you really get this thing cranked up 6 years ago. It was painful. It was, you had to make the right decisions. You can make some mistakes, but more importantly, you have to have the drive to constantly improve. And I think you've always done that. You've always shown that. And it's just, I love having you on and talk about it. Is there anything you want to add before we end?
Oh, just say thanks. I mean, it's been a labor of love. I continue for it to be a labor of love for me. We just opened our second office here in Nashville. So we've got an operations center, and now we've got on the other side of town, closer to where I live, what we call an executive center, where we've got couple of executive offices, a really nice boardroom, some other office space. And, it really, it's also across the street strategically from one of our largest customers, and then it's walkable to our largest customer. It wasn't the main driver, but it certainly
It helps.
was a thought process when we did it. And then it's also, less than 15 minutes from my house, which is also nice. So we've got that. But the biggest thing for me, Ray, is just how much fun I'm having doing this. As we pass through 12 million in revenue and we're on our way to, our next big target is getting to 20. It's just realizing the things we have to change about the business and the things we have to bring on and think about that we didn't have to bring on and think about when we were, 6 million or 8 million. But I will say this, maintaining our entrepreneurial roots has been critical. And we've hired a third-party consulting company to come in and help us this year maintain our culture and our entrepreneurial roots as we continue to add people and add services and grow, so that we don't lose focus of what made us great in the first place.
Well, the good news is it'll be easy to get to the 20 million because of your maturity, because of your discipline, and your focus on those higher end accounts. And you're not going to be bogged down by doing things that didn't make a lot of sense before, let alone today. Milton, it's always great talking to you because everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.